My girlfriend secretly paid another woman to test my loyalty. She wanted to prove I'd eventually cheat. What she never expected was that the woman she'd hired would tell me everything. If someone had asked me 6 months ago whether I trusted my girlfriend, I would have answered without hesitation. Absolutely. Emily and I had been together for almost 3 years. We argued about stupid things. We disagreed about where to spend holidays. She loved expensive restaurants. I preferred cooking at home. Normal couple stuff. Nothing that ever made me question our relationship. At least, that's what I thought. Emily always joked that I was too friendly. If a cashier smiled at me, she noticed. If a waitress complimented my shirt, Emily noticed. If an old friend texted me happy birthday, Emily noticed that too. She'd laugh about it. I'm just protecting what's mine. I always laughed back. I've never given you a reason not to trust me. She'd smile. I know. I just overthink. Back then, I thought it was harmless insecurity. Looking back, it was something very different. One Friday evening, she asked me a strange question. If a really attractive woman flirted with you, what would you do? I laughed. Probably tell her I'm taken. She raised an eyebrow. Just like that. Yeah. What if she kept trying? I'd leave. Emily smiled. You make it sound easy. It is. She kissed me. I hope you're right. At the time, I thought it was just another random relationship conversation. I had no idea it was the beginning of something she'd already planned. A week later, I stopped at a small coffee shop near my office. I'd never been there before. The line was long. While I waited for my order, someone tapped my shoulder. Excuse me. I turned around. A woman about my age smiled politely. Sorry to bother you, but I think I've seen you before. I smiled. I don't think so. She laughed. You're probably right. I'm Sophie. Daniel. We talked for less than 2 minutes. Nothing unusual. She asked where I worked. Mentioned she'd recently moved into the area. Then my coffee was ready. It was nice meeting you. You too. I walked out without thinking about it again. The next afternoon, I saw her again. Same coffee shop. Different table. She waved. What are the odds? I laughed. Pretty small. She asked if I wanted to sit for a minute. I had nowhere to be. So I did. We talked about work. Movies. Travel. Nothing personal. Nothing inappropriate. After about 15 minutes, I stood up. I should get going. She smiled. Maybe I'll see you around. Maybe. That evening, Emily casually asked, Did you have a good day? Yeah. I tried a new coffee shop. Oh. Meet anyone interesting? The question caught me off guard. There was a woman who thought she'd met me before. Emily nodded. And we talked for a few minutes. That was it. She smiled. Good. Then she immediately changed the subject. I didn't think anything of it. Now, I realized she wasn't making conversation. She was checking my answer. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophie seemed to appear everywhere. The coffee shop, the bookstore, the park where I jogged on Saturdays. It felt like an incredible coincidence. She was always friendly, always easy to talk to. But she never crossed the line. Neither did I. I even told Emily about running into her again. Emily just smiled. Small world. Then everything changed. One Thursday evening, I was leaving work when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello. A nervous female voice replied. Daniel. Yes. It's Sophie. I frowned. How did you get my number? I'm really sorry. I know this is going to sound crazy, but we need to meet. My stomach tightened. Why? There was a long pause. Then she quietly said something that made my heart stop. Because your girlfriend hired me. To make you fall in love with me. And suddenly, every coincidence over the past 2 weeks made perfect sense. I didn't say anything. For a few seconds, I honestly thought someone was playing a prank on me. And what? Sophie's voice was shaking. I know how insane this sounds, but I can prove it. I looked around the parking lot. People were walking to their cars, completely unaware that my world had just stopped. Where are you? Across the street. I turned around. She was standing outside a small bakery, holding her phone. She didn't wave. She looked terrified. 5 minutes later, we were sitting at a quiet table inside the bakery. Neither of us touched our coffee. Sophie took a deep breath. I almost didn't call you. Then why did you? Because this went way too far. I folded my arms. Start from the beginning. She slowly unlocked her phone. About 3 weeks ago, a woman contacted me through social media. She said she needed help with a relationship experiment. I already knew who she meant, but hearing it out loud still hurt. Emily. Sophie nodded. She offered to pay me. To do what? Become your friend. I stared at her. That's it. She gave me a sad smile. At first, she opened her messaging app. The conversation was still there. I could see Emily's profile picture. There was no doubt. It was her. Sophie handed me the phone. The first message read, I need to know if my boyfriend is actually loyal. Another message followed. Talk to him naturally. Don't make it obvious. Then another. If he asks you out first, tell me immediately. I felt my stomach tighten. Sophie quietly said, I didn't believe she was serious. So I agree. She looked embarrassed. I lost my job last month. I needed money. Emily had offered her $2,000. Half up front. The rest after the test was finished. I kept scrolling. Every message made things worse. Emily had planned everything. The coffee shop. The bookstore. The jogging trail. Even the exact days I usually left work. One message read, he always goes to Maple Park on Saturday mornings around 9. Another, he loves crime documentaries. Bring that up if you need a conversation starter. I slowly looked up. How did she know all this? Sophie frowned. I assumed you told her. I laughed bitterly. No. I told Emily. Every tiny detail about me had been turned into instructions. What was the end goal? Sophie's expression changed. That's the part that made me call you. She opened another section of the conversation. Emily had written, keep talking to him until he asks you to dinner. Then, if he doesn't, invite him yourself. Then another message. If he still says no. I stopped reading. Keep going. Sophie hesitated. I don't think you want to. I do. She handed me the phone again. The final message simply said, do whatever it takes to make him cross the line. The room suddenly felt much smaller. I looked at Sophie. You never tried. She shook her head. I couldn't. Why? Because you never gave me a reason. She smiled weakly. You talked about Emily all the time. I frowned. I did. You mentioned her almost every conversation. Emily would love this restaurant. Emily hates horror movies. Emily's birthday is next month. Sophie shrugged. It became obvious you actually loved her. I looked away. That somehow made everything hurt even more. So why keep meeting me? I asked. She sighed. Because Emily kept asking. If I suddenly disappeared, she'd know something was wrong. So I just kept pretending. Until yesterday. What happened yesterday? Sophie's face turned serious. Emily got angry. Why? Because nothing was happening. She opened one last screenshot. Emily had written, "You're being too nice. Flirt more." Another message. Touch his arm. Another. Invite him over if you have to. Then, the final message. Sophie's voice became almost a whisper. That's when I quit. I looked at the screen. The last text from Emily read, I don't care how you do it. I just need proof that every man cheats eventually. I stared at the words for what felt like forever. Not because they were shocking. Because they told me something much worse than I expected. This had never been about trust. Emily wasn't trying to find out who I was. She'd already decided I was guilty. She was just waiting for someone to manufacture the evidence. I drove home in complete silence. The radio was off. My phone stayed in my pocket. For nearly 30 minutes. I couldn't think about anything except those messages. I just need proof that every man cheats eventually. Not, I want to trust him. Not, I'm scared. She'd already reached her conclusion. She just needed someone else to help prove it. When I walked into our apartment, Emily was making dinner. She smiled the second she saw me. Hey, you're home early. Yeah. She walked over and kissed me. Everything okay? I looked into her eyes. For 3 years, I'd believed I knew this woman. Now I wasn't sure I knew her at all. Long day. She smiled sympathetically. Dinner will be ready in 10 minutes. She acted exactly the same. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent the last 3 weeks secretly trying to destroy the relationship she'd claimed to value. During dinner, she casually asked, So, did anything interesting happen today? There it was. Another test. I decided to answer honestly. I met Sophie. Emily didn't even blink. Oh. Again. Yeah. What did you two talk about? I shrugged. Nothing important. She nodded. That's nice. Then she immediately changed the subject. I suddenly realized something. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was comparing my answers to whatever Sophie had been reporting. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. She keeps asking me if you tried to flirt today. Another message arrived. I haven't answered yet. Then one more. What do you want me to do? I stared at the screen. Finally, I replied. Tell her exactly what happened. Nothing. A minute later, Sophie answered. She won't believe me. I already knew that. The next morning, I went to work like normal. Around lunchtime, Marcus noticed something was wrong. You look terrible. I probably do. We grabbed coffee, and I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. I've heard some crazy relationship stories. But this. He shook his head. This isn't insecurity. This is manipulation. I know. No. I don't think you do. He pointed at me. She didn't test your loyalty. She tried to manufacture a reason to accuse you. That sentence stayed with me. Because it was true. That evening, Sophie called again. I'm sorry. For what? Emily's getting impatient. How impatient? Sophie sighed. She wants me to invite you to dinner. I closed my eyes. I figured. I already told her I wasn't comfortable. What did she say? Sophie hesitated, then quietly answered. She offered me another $1,000. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it kept getting worse. So what are you going to do? Sophie asked. I thought about it for a moment. Invite me. She was silent. Seriously. Yeah. I'll come. But we're not having dinner. What do you mean? I think it's time Emily finds out this game is over. Saturday afternoon arrived. Sophie texted me the location. A small Italian restaurant across town. Emily had apparently suggested it herself. According to Sophie, Emily planned to be nearby. Watching. Waiting. Hoping to catch me doing something wrong. I arrived exactly on time. Sophie was already sitting by the window. She looked incredibly nervous. I'm sorry. You've apologized enough. She smiled weakly. I still feel guilty. This isn't your fault. She nodded. I know. But I should have said no from the beginning. We ordered coffee. Nothing else. Neither of us even looked at the menu. Instead, we talked. About work. Her family. How she'd been struggling to pay rent after losing her job. The more we talked, the more obvious it became that she wasn't a bad person. She'd simply made one desperate decision, and then realized she'd gone too far. About 20 minutes later, Sophie looked toward the front window. Her face changed immediately. She's here. I turned slightly. Across the street, Emily was standing beside her car, wearing sunglasses, staring directly at the restaurant, watching us, exactly as she'd planned. Except, she had no idea that Sophie had already told me everything. I looked back at Sophie. Ready? She nodded nervously. For what? I smiled. We're going to surprise my girlfriend. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I finally had control of what happened next. I stood up. Sophie looked at me like I was crazy. Daniel, what are you doing? I smiled. Ending this. We walked out of the restaurant together. Emily immediately took off her sunglasses. For a split second, she looked excited, like she'd finally caught me. Then she noticed something. Neither Sophie nor I were smiling. We walked straight toward her. Emily forced a laugh. What a coincidence. I looked at her. Is it? She glanced at Sophie. Then back at me. I was just shopping nearby. Sophie quietly folded her arms. Really? Emily's smile started to fade. What does that mean? I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened one of the screenshots Sophie had sent me. I held it in front of Emily. She froze. The message was simple. Talk to him naturally. I need to know if he'll cheat. Emily's face immediately lost all color. She looked at Sophie. You showed him. Sophie nodded. Everything. Emily's eyes widened. You promised you wouldn't. Sophie took a step back. I never promised that. I only agreed because I needed money. But I wasn't going to ruin someone's relationship. Emily turned toward me. Daniel. I can explain. I shook my head. No. I I'd actually like to hear this. She looked completely panicked. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Silence. Then, you weren't supposed to find out. That wasn't exactly the defense she thought it was. People walking past the restaurant had started slowing down. Nobody was close enough to hear us, but they could tell something serious was happening. Emily lowered her voice. I was scared. Of what? Getting hurt. I nodded slowly. So instead, you tried to hurt me first. She looked away. I opened another screenshot. This one read, do whatever it takes to make him cross the line. Emily immediately reached for my phone. Stop. I pulled it back. You wrote this. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? She couldn't answer. For the first time since we'd started dating, I realized something. Emily never apologized first. Every sentence started with, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know. Everything was about her feelings. Not once had she said, I'm sorry. Sophie quietly spoke. I should probably leave. I nodded. Thank you. Emily looked horrified. You're thanking her. Yes. For telling me the truth. Sophie looked genuinely relieved. I hope things work out. I smiled sadly. I think they just did. She walked away without looking back. Emily and I stood there alone. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Finally, she whispered, I love you. I looked at her. I believe you. Her eyes filled with hope. Then I continued. But love doesn't look like this. That hope disappeared immediately. She stepped closer. I'll delete everything. I'll block Sophie. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you want. I sighed. Emily, this isn't about Sophie. It's about the fact that you spent weeks trying to prove I was a bad person. She shook her head desperately. I wasn't. I quietly replied. You paid someone to manufacture temptation. That's exactly what you were doing. She started crying. Real tears. Not fake ones. I just wanted certainty. I answered honestly. You had it. For 3 years. I never lied to you. I never cheated. I never even flirted with anyone. You already had certainty. You just refused to believe it. That sentence finally broke her. She sat down on a nearby bench, covering her face, crying silently. I honestly felt sorry for her. Not because she'd been caught. Because she'd spent so long convincing herself that betrayal was inevitable. She couldn't recognize loyalty when it was standing right in front of her. I took one last look at her. I'm going home. She grabbed my wrist. Please. Don't leave. I gently pulled my hand away. I think you already left this relationship. The day you hired someone to test me. Then I turned around and walked away. Halfway back to my car, my phone vibrated. It was Marcus. How'd it go? I looked back one final time. Emily was still sitting on the bench. Alone. I typed 4 words. Worse than expected. 30 seconds later, another message appeared. From Emily. Please come home. We need to talk. I stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. There's something I never told you. I frowned. After everything that had happened, I honestly couldn't imagine what secret could possibly make this day any worse. I stared at Emily's message for several seconds. There's something I never told you. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part needed to know what else could possibly be left. I turned the car around. Emily was still sitting on the bench when I returned. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She looked up as I walked over. I wasn't sure you'd come back. I almost didn't. She nodded. I deserve that. For the first time all day. She wasn't making excuses. So, what didn't you tell me? She took a shaky breath. My sister knew. I frowned. What? My sister knew about the loyalty test. I felt my stomach drop. She helped you plan it. Emily slowly nodded. She said every guy eventually cheats. She told me I was being naive. She kept saying, if he's really loyal, you have nothing to worry about. I couldn't believe it. So this wasn't even your idea. It started as mine. She looked down. But she kept pushing me. Every time I wanted to stop. She convinced me to keep going. I rubbed my forehead. Emily, you still made the decision. I know. I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming myself. For the first time. That actually sounded sincere. She reached into her purse. I want you to have this. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was cash. Exactly $2,000. The money I paid Sophie. I can't keep it. I looked at the envelope. I'm not taking this. Please. No. What am I supposed to do with it? I shrugged. Donate it. Pay your rent. Burn it. I don't care. But I don't want money. I wanted trust. Emily burst into tears again. I ruined everything. I quietly answered. Yes. There wasn't another honest response. I walked away. This time. She didn't try to stop me. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed notifications. Not from Emily. From mutual friends. One message read, Hey, are you and Emily okay? Another. She posted something strange last night. I frowned. Posted. I opened social media. Emily had written a long paragraph. It didn't mention my name. But everyone who knew us would know exactly who it was about. She described herself as someone who had let fear destroy the healthiest relationship she'd ever had. Thousands of people had already seen it. Comments poured in. Some supported her. Others criticized her. Then I noticed something unexpected. At the very top, Sophie had commented, he never crossed a single boundary. I was paid to test him. He passed every single time. The replies exploded. People started asking questions. Emily deleted the post less than an hour later. But screenshots had already spread everywhere. That afternoon, Marcus called. You've become internet famous. I wish I hadn't. He laughed. You know what the funniest part is? What? Everyone's calling you. The guy who passed the impossible test. I couldn't help smiling. I'd rather have stayed anonymous. A few days later, Emily asked if we could meet one last time. Not to get back together. Just to return a few things we'd left at each other's apartments. Books. A hoodie. Some kitchen supplies. Nothing dramatic. When I arrived, everything was neatly packed into 2 boxes. She handed them to me. I don't expect forgiveness. I know. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not. I was scared. Not. You don't understand. Just. I'm sorry. I nodded. Thank you. As I turned to leave, she quietly asked one last question. Was there ever a moment where you were tempted? I smiled sadly. No. She looked surprised. Not even once. I shook my head. I wasn't loyal because I was being tested. I was loyal because I loved you. Those words seemed to hurt her more than anything else I'd said. Because she finally understood. The only person who had destroyed our relationship was herself. 3 months later, I ran into Sophie at the same coffee shop where all of this had started. This time, there were no hidden cameras, no secret messages, no tests. She laughed. Quite a different meeting this time. Definitely. She had found a new job. Things were finally going well for her. We talked for about 10 minutes before standing to leave. As we walked toward the door, she smiled. So, I guess this really is goodbye. I smiled back. I think so. We shook hands. Nothing more. Then walked in opposite directions. Exactly the way strangers should. That evening, I deleted the last photo Emily and I had together. Not because I hated her. Because I was finally ready to move forward. Sometimes people don't lose good relationships because they were betrayed. Sometimes they lose them because they spend so much time expecting betrayal that they create it themselves. And that's exactly what happened to us. 6 months passed. Life slowly started to feel normal again. I wasn't constantly checking my phone. I wasn't wondering whether someone was watching me. And for the first time in years, I realized how peaceful a relationship could be when nobody was trying to test anyone. Marcus and I were having lunch one afternoon when he asked, "So, any dating apps yet?" I laughed. Not a chance. He grinned. I figured. You know, after everything you've been through, you've earned the right to be a little paranoid. I shook my head. No, I don't want to become like Emily. What do you mean? I don't want one bad experience to convince me everyone is the same. Marcus smiled. Good answer. About a month later, I received an unexpected email. The subject line simply read, "Thank you." It was from Sophie. She'd recently accepted a management position at a local company. She wanted me to know she'd finally paid off all of her debt. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "You probably don't realize it, but telling the truth that day changed my life too. I stopped making decisions out of desperation. Thank you for treating me like a person instead of the villain." I smiled, then deleted the email. Not because it wasn't kind. Because the chapter was over. Around the same time, I heard about Emily through mutual friends. She'd started seeing a therapist. Apparently, she'd admitted that she'd spent years believing every relationship would end in betrayal because of things she'd witnessed growing up. For the first time, she was trying to deal with those fears instead of letting them control other people. I genuinely hoped it helped. Not because I wanted her back. Because I didn't want anyone else to go through what I had. Nearly a year after we broke up, I ran into Emily completely by accident. I was grocery shopping after work. She was standing in the produce section. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. A small, genuine smile. "Hi, Daniel." "Hi. You look good." "So do you." There wasn't any awkwardness. No anger. Just two people whose lives had gone in different directions. She hesitated before speaking again. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For not humiliating me." I looked confused. "You could have posted all those screenshots online. You could have tried to ruin my reputation. But you didn't." I shrugged. I wasn't trying to win. I just wanted the truth. She nodded slowly. "I understand that now." Before we left, she quietly said, "I finally learned something." "What's that?" She smiled sadly. "Trust isn't something you prove by setting traps. It's something you build by telling the truth. I nodded. I hope you remember that. I will. That was the last conversation we ever had. Looking back, people often ask what hurt the most. It wasn't the fake dates. It wasn't Sophie. It wasn't even discovering that I'd been secretly tested for weeks. The hardest part was realizing that someone who claimed to love me never actually trusted me. And without trust, love eventually becomes nothing more than suspicion wearing a smile. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that healthy relationships don't need hidden cameras, fake strangers, secret experiments, or loyalty tests. If you constantly search for proof that someone will betray you, you'll eventually destroy the relationship yourself. Not because they failed, but because you never gave them the chance to succeed. I didn't lose my relationship because I wasn't loyal. I lost it because someone kept looking for a version of me that never existed. And honestly, walking away was the most loyal thing I could do for myself.